SEGA Model 3. For gamers of a certain age, it represents the pinnacle of 3D arcade gaming. Titles like Daytona USA 2, SEGA Rally 2, Virtua Fighter 3, Fighting Vipers 2, as well as movie tie-ins Jurassic Park The Lost World and Star Wars trilogy, wooed arcade goers in the mid to late 90s. When the Dreamcast arrived, many expected a plethora of Model 3 ports to come home, but only a handful would make the transition. However, there is one game, above all others, that has attained a somewhat cult status. The game many consider the Dreamcast game that never was, and that game is Scud Race. I'm James, the Segaholic, one half of the Sega guys, and in this edition of Race we're going to delve into the history of Scud Race. Released on the SEGA Model 3 Step 1.5 board, the game was developed by AM2 and released in Japanese arcades in 1996. The Scud in Scud Race stands for Sports Car Ultimate Drive. However, in the United States the game was simply known as Sega Super GT, which, according to the May 1997 issue of Next Generation magazine, was due to US marketers convincing Sega of Japan to change the title since the word Scud evoked memories of Scud missiles and the Gulf War. Now, I'll be honest, being Scottish, neither cars nor missiles come to mind when I hear the word Scud. Trust me, look it up. It's hard to believe that this game released in 1996. I mean, think about that for a second. We were only 1 year into the western life of the Sega Saturn, and I've already mentioned how I'd go to my local arcade to see the latest Sega games and get a glimpse of future potential Saturn titles. Scud Race though wasn't just the latest Sega game, it was light years ahead of anything I'd ever seen before. The cars, the sense of speed, the sheer level of detail on the tracks, it was incredible. I mean, just look at it. And some might find this odd, but I still look at Scud Race and think it's like something from the future, which sounds crazy given the photorealism of today's racing games, but the aura created by Scud Race back in the day has never left it. Not for me. Scud Race is viewed as a spiritual successor to Daytona USA, mainly due to it being directed, produced and designed by Toshihiro Nagoshi, who many will know as the former chief creative director of Ryogo Gotoku Studio, famous of course for the Yakuza series. Nagoshi-san of course directed and published Daytona USA, but he's also had a hand in many of Sega's most notable arcade titles, including, but not limited to, Virtua Racing, chief designer, Virtua Fighter 2, stage designer, Virtua Fighter 3, character modelling, director and supervisor, Daytona USA 2 as producer, and he even worked on Shenmue as a supervisor, director and producer. There's so many more games that he's worked on, I could create a whole video alone. Now that's an idea. But where did Nagoshi-san get the inspiration for Scud Race, and just what is it based on? Scud Race is based on the BPR Global GT series, and you can see the BPR logo prominently displayed on both the attract mode and the car models themselves. The series was founded by Jürgen Barth, Patrick Peter and Stefan Rattel, the first initial of their last names forming the name BPR. The series ran from 1994 to 1996 and was eventually reformed as the FIA GT Championship in 1997. This was due to the increase in manufacturer involvement, as smaller cup cars from the early days of the series were replaced by more and more supercar manufacturers. The cars featured in Scud Race are 4 of the actual cars which compete in the BPR series. the Porsche 911 GT2, based on the Porsche 993, the Ferrari F40, the Dodge Viper GT-SR, and the McLaren F1 GTR, the winning car of the BPR series in both 1995 and 1996. Many people through the years have speculated as to why the game was never ported to any of Sega's home consoles, or any home system for that fact. Some have cited Sega's insistence on the Dreamcast not being stereotyped with arcade ports like the Saturn. Licenses are another potential issue, and there are lots of them. And while we have no idea how long the license with the BPR was signed for, it's safe to assume it became defunct in 1996 when the series ended. And when you look at the number of brands on show in this game, with each car having up to 5 or 6 sponsors, never mind their manufacturer, you begin to see the potential minefield. That said, Sega have got around licenses in the past in the likes of Outrun, changing the Ferrari prancing horse to something more bespoke. And that's what I think may have been attempted going by the footage of Scud Race that we did see at the new Challenge conference in 1998 when the Dreamcast was unveiled. Part of that demo shows the Ferrari F40 and the Porsche 911 racing one another across a beautifully lit bridge over water. And while the footage is blurry, the cars don't appear to have the BPR logo on their doors or the brand logos on their hoods. And let's not forget, the car models would have had to be drawn from scratch on Dreamcast anyway, giving the system's use of polygons instead of quads like Model 3. Would it really have been that much hassle to rebuild them all without any BPR licensing or any of the brands? In the end, I think the lack of a home port of Scud Race simply comes down to Sega's appetite for it, or lack thereof. The combination of potential license issues and the changing expectations of gamers when it came to racing games and indeed home console games in general meant that Sega simply made a business decision to consign Scud Race to the arcade forever. However, at one point, we were allowed to dream. Despite releasing in the Sega Saturn's life cycle, the closest our favourite Sega console would get to Scud Race is the impressive rotating Saturn logo that looms over the start-finish line on the beginner day circuit. However, back in 1998, I remember being in awe at the very sight of Scud Race and Dreamcast in the same sentence, and other than blurry photos or old videos, we'd never had the pleasure of seeing that Scud Race demo with our own eyes. Until now. This is the Dreamcast tech demo of Scud Race's beginner day course, running on the Set 2 Dreamcast SDK, which accounts for 25% of the final Katana dev kit, known as Set 5. This amazing piece of preservation work has been undertaken by Swiss Dreamcast collector and Sega fan Laurent, who along with his friend who goes by the name Sifting have created a launcher called the Kamui Wrapper that allows you to experience these tech demos on your own PC. Laurent's site is a treasure trove of Dreamcast tech demos and preservation, with other demos including the Tower of Babel and a downloadable archive of some 2,000 plus images and video clips from the new Challenge conference. All the links you need are in the description, and once again a massive thank you to Laurent for his permission to use his footage on our channel. Scud Race is set in the fictional setting of Versus City, and the beginner day course takes place in Dolphin Tunnel. Look out for that rotating Saturn logo above the start line. The night beginner course takes place on Twilight Airport, featuring gorgeous lighting and has the best track in the OST in my opinion, the fantastic Flight in the Dark. The Mystery Ruins track has a wonderful Aztec setting with gorgeous lighting and tough turns through mountain regions with waterfalls and remote villages. Known as Classic Castle, this track features narrow winding roads over steel frame bridges and tight 90-degree turns into Colosseum style buildings. Scud Race Plus was a Japanese-only update released later in 1997. It adds a super beginner track as well as several new vehicles, but not quite what you'd think. The super beginner track can be best described as Andy's house from Toy Story meets Toy Commander, because yes, it's absolutely crazy. There's sofas, staircases, fireplaces, pianos and even cats, yes cats, and you race against the aforementioned new vehicles, which are buses, tanks and rocket cars, oh, and a smaller cat, and of course they're all toys. And amongst the madness, Sega even managed to throw a mini game in there as well, because you have the opportunity on each lap to play some 10-pin bowling with your car as the ball. So there we have it guys, the history of Scud Race from the arcade through to the ill-fated Dreamcast port. I do hope you have enjoyed this. You can catch me at the Segaholic. You can get Dan at Swooper_D. You can find the podcast account at Sega Guys. I do hope you have enjoyed this. Get involved in the comments. Have you played Scud Race? What do you think about it? Do you play it today? Let me know in the comments below. I do hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the Sega side.